Resident Evil is a game of multiple endings and alternative paths and cutscenes that lead the player to those respective endings, and this video is going to service anyone with the curiosity of going about obtaining those alternative events. The game has a total of 6 endings, with Chris and Joe each having the ability to earn one of these endings that can be classified as 2 bad endings, 2 good endings, and then 2 best endings. The qualifications for each is determined by whether or not the player gets to the end of the game to support characters are alive or dead, but it seems that people are often confused and wondering how to ensure that they get a specific ending or series of events to play out, and how to keep one of the support characters alive or dead, etc, etc. Ever since I started making Resident Evil content and uploading it to YouTube, the most commonly asked questions revolve around stuff like, how do I save Rebecca? Why didn't Barry save me when I grabbed the shotgun? Please help, Barry died, I can't save him, where's Barry?
Barry, where's Barry?
Well, guess what? This video is going to answer all those questions for both Chris and Joe, so sit back, relax, and watch. And if this video is to your liking, feel free to like and comment down below, and wait until the end if you feel like subscribing or not. I hope you decide to, because that would be pretty amazing and would help me out a lot. Starting with Chris Redfield, when the game begins, all we need to do is encounter the first zombie and then leave. While Chris can head back to the main hall to see Wesker and Joe one last time, this doesn't affect any key events in his story and is more or less just an added scene that you can bear witness to, so I'll just leave it shown here just so you can see what it looks like.
Investigate if you hear any gunfire.
The next series of events are determined by whether or not we want to either obtain the sword key or the armor key first, which will set into motion of how we want to meet Rebecca Chambers and where. So let's begin with the armor key route, because it's a lot more complicated than obtaining the sword key first. Obtaining the armor key first and heading to Richard will ensure that we meet Rebecca while she is aiding Richard in this hallway. After these series of events, we have 2 options. We can attempt to save Richard or let him succumb to his wounds. Let's go with option 1, meaning that we will grab the serum from the western storage room and then promptly head back to Richard to give him the serum shot. This will result in Richard giving us the radio, as well as Rebecca joining us for the remainder of the game.
Here's the serum. Is he all right?
Yes, he is. Thanks. Richard, hold on. I'll give you a shot now.
Chris, here's a radio. Take it.
Richard! No!
Richard!
Rebecca, be careful.
Richard! Richard! Are you?
Rebecca, it's very dangerous out here. Will you come with me?
I'd like to stay here a little bit longer.
Okay, Rebecca. Can you use a gun? I'll look for the others. Protect yourself.
Chris, be careful, please.
When playing the piano, Rebecca will join us and mention how she has decided to no longer grieve and then move on.
It's me, Chris.
Are you all right?
Yes, I have decided not to grieve any longer.
Proceeding through the game and encountering Yawn, the giant snake, we have one of 2 options here as well. We can get poisoned, or we can leave without being poisoned, and this will determine whether we play as Rebecca or not. Getting poisoned means that we will now play as Rebecca, head to the western storage room, grab the serum, and then promptly return to Chris.
You all right?
However, not returning to Chris in time will give us a game over, and the game will end, so let's not do that.
Chris!
Returning to Chris in time will mean we did the right thing and rescued our protagonist. Since Richard handed us the radio before perishing, we can actually trigger a hidden cutscene after getting rid of the dogs in the first area of the courtyard. Once the dogs are defeated, the radio will beep, and we can go into our menu and select the radio for this cutscene.
This is Chris.
This is Brad. Stars Alpha Team. Bravo Team. It doesn't matter. Anybody, answer me. This is
Damn, it's broken.
Then we can proceed through the game up until Plant 42, and this path will ensure that we'll play as Rebecca again, this time needed to make V-Jolt so that we have to rescue Chris and fight Plant 42, skipping the first phase of the fight. After this encounter, we meet Rebecca again, and we can even follow her into the chemical room where she can heal us. After leaving the dorms, Chris can actually receive another radio call.
This is Brad. I know you can't answer me, but somehow give me.
This is Chris. Brad, can you hear me? Damn.
Upon returning to the mansion and encountering the hunters, we do not have to worry about saving Rebecca, meaning that we are on the right path to the good ending, and all we need to do in order to save Jill and obtain the best ending would be to obtain the 3 MO disc or Mo disc, whatever you want to call it, and you can decide to rescue Jill or not. If you decide not to rescue Jill and only save Rebecca, then you will get only one of the 2 good endings where only Chris and Rebecca escape, and then you will have to fight the tyrant at the helipad after lighting the flare. If you decide to rescue Jill with Rebecca at your side, this will lead to the best ending, including fighting the tyrant at the helipad, meaning both Jill and Rebecca will be present on the helicopter at the end of the game, and you will be one tough guy who closes this case completely. Keep in mind that collecting the MO disc will not affect whether or not that you get the best ending. Only deciding to save Jill will grant you either her ending or the best ending. You can safely collect all 3 MO discs, insert them into the control panels in the lab, and even go as far as conversing with Jill before ever encountering Wesker in the lab tyrant, and if you don't rescue her from the prison cell, you can still get the bad ending or the Rebecca ending. So let's rewind back to Yawn, but sticking to the armor key route. As I had mentioned before, it's possible to escape or defeat Yawn during the first encounter without being poisoned, and if you do just that, all the events that I had mentioned before and the ones that I have just shown you will play out as I just said without any issue, but you just won't take over as Rebecca in order to rescue Chris because it's simply not necessary because you're not poisoned after all. So what happens instead if you are too late to save Richard but still get the armor key first and meet Rebecca here? It's quite simple. Richard perishes and Chris does not get the radio. You still, in fact, do meet Rebecca later on when attempting to play the piano, and she will still mention that she is no longer grieving as before. However, this time, Rebecca does not accompany Chris whatsoever for the remainder of the game. This also means that Chris will not get the radio, so there's no extra scenes involving trying to contact Brad. Chris will also need to fight Plant 42 all by himself without the aid of Rebecca. Chris, however, can find a radio outside, which presumably maybe Rebecca had dropped on her way back to the mansion.
What? It must be a STARS radio. It's a little bit broken, but it might still be usable. I'll take it with me.
When returning to the mansion and upon encountering the hunters, defeating a hunter or running away from them will result in a cutscene where Chris will hear Rebecca scream.
What are they? It's Rebecca! She must be upstairs!
And has the option of saving her. She will be located upstairs in a library, and the player actually has 4 options, which 3 of those options will result in Rebecca dying. Chris can ignore Rebecca completely, never ever entering the room, and proceeding to the end of the game to decide whether or not they want to save Jill. If you decide to ignore Jill as well, we will get the bad ending, and Chris will be left alone to confront Wesker and only fight the tyrant in the lab while obtaining a very somber ending, alone in a helicopter, but at least he gets to enjoy a smoke. The player could also enter the library where Rebecca is located with the hunter, and then just turn around and leave. You can hear her scream during her last moments of living, which is just hilariously messed up. You can also enter the room, kill the hunter, and examine her body while Chris just shakes his head in disappointment, and from here you're able to decide whether or not you want to rescue Jill, etc, etc. If the player is too late upon entering a library, the hunter will slash at Rebecca, and as she attempts to make an escape, the hunter will go for his kill strike and decapitate Rebecca, which is easily one of the most gnarly kills in the entire game you could actually witness. If Chris races to ensure Rebecca's safety and saves the day, the hunter will not attack Rebecca at all, and once he takes out the hunter, Rebecca will run out of the room in shame, while Chris just nods his head. Later in the lab, before entering the elevator, Rebecca will meet up with Chris and apologize to him.
Rebecca, you're safe.
I'm sorry.
Well, I'm glad you're all right. Don't go out alone.
Yes, sir.
This will also mean that you are locked to the ending where Rebecca will stay with Chris, and you can also decide whether or not to save Jill, meaning that you can still get the ending with just Rebecca surviving, or you can actually opt it out and get the best ending. Now, keep in mind that keeping Rebecca alive will always mean that you fight the tyrant at the helipad, but if you only decide to save Jill and not save Rebecca at all, then you will never fight the tyrant at the helipad. Those are all the options that you can take to find every alternative scene if you decide to obtain the armor key first and meet Rebecca where you find Richard. So are you keeping up with me? Because I know this is a lot, and as I said before, the armor key route is quite complex, but no worries, stick around to the end because I actually made flowcharts depicting all of this. Now, what if we decide to meet Rebecca in the western storage room where the stored key is located? This is a far more linear route, and thankfully nowhere near as complicated, so what happens next is based on a very binary decision, and that is whether or not that you allow Rebecca to accompany you. If you decide to say yes, Rebecca will accompany Chris for the remainder of the game, which will also allow her to aid the player during some bigger mistakes that you can actually make. When attempting to play the piano, Rebecca will enter the room, but the dialogue is different here, because Rebecca has technically not encountered Richard as he was succumbing to his wounds, so she just says hello and never mentions anything about grieving. This is why I mentioned this particular scene despite the piano cutscene being a fixed event, because you can hear a slightly different conversation now.
It's me, Chris.
Is that you, Rebecca?
When it comes to Richard, he will always be dead when meeting Rebecca in the western storage room, so there will never be a need to do a serum run at all with Chris if you decide to do this. When encountering Yon after saying yes to Rebecca accompanying us, getting poisoned will mean that we get to play as Rebecca and do a serum run for Chris. Again, not completing this in the time does result in a game over, as mentioned before, but not getting poisoned at all means no serum run. But it does still mean Rebecca will accompany and help you later during a fight with Plant 42. So essentially, saying yes to Rebecca whenever you meet her in the storage room will mean that you always will have to make V-Jolt as Rebecca to help save Chris. Later on, when you encounter Rebecca in the lab, she will actually have slightly different dialogue here as she mentions seeing Chris in the garden and finally catching up to him.
Chris!
Rebecca, you're safe.
I saw you in the garden. I've caught up with you at last.
Well, I'm glad you're all right. Don't go out alone.
Yes, sir.
So, what if we say no to Rebecca when she asks to tag along? The only difference here is that if Chris is poisoned by Jan, she will instead somehow carry Chris's heavy ass all the way back to the Western storage room and treat him. Not getting poisoned means this simply doesn't happen.
Chris. Chris.
Is that you, Rebecca?
Chris, are you all right?
Yeah. What happened?
You were bitten by a poisonous snake. Are you okay?
My head is killing me.
I think you'll be all right because I gave you a shot. But please stay out of trouble.
You saved my life. I owe you one.
Chris, take care.
Rebecca will also not aid Chris whatsoever during the Plan 42 fight, and when returning to the mansion and encountering the hunters, defeating the first hunter or running away into the next room will result in a moment where Chris questions Rebecca's whereabouts and hopes she remains safe.
What are they? Monsters? Rebecca! She's still in the house?
And it's up to you as Chris to search for Rebecca throughout the mansion. You can, in fact, ignore searching for Rebecca whatsoever and work towards the bad ending or the jail ending. And if you decide to go looking for her, she will just be right outside the Western storage room where you initially met her to get the sword key, being attacked by a hunter. You can also ignore her here by running away to hear her scream, returning to kill the hunter, and also examine her body. Again, the way they framed this is just so messed up.
Rebecca!
This will also allow the player to obtain the bad ending or opt for getting the Jill and Chris ending. If we decide to save Rebecca for the hunter, it will lead to one of my favorite lines of dialogue delivered by Chris Redfield.
Rebecca! Rebecca!
Chris!
Thank God you're safe.
I'm sorry that you were worried about me.
We are in great danger. We must organize a search for the others and get the hell out of here. Understood?
Yes, sir!
Okay, I'll go first. Proceed with your own judgment. All right? Can you do it?
Yes, I can!
Good luck.
Yes, sir! I'll do my best!
This will also lock the player into the Rebecca ending with the option to get the best ending by also rescuing Jill. No lines of dialogue would change for the remainder of the game, and that's all the events involving Chris. So, to recap, here is my flowchart. Let's take a look at it. As you can see, this is the flowchart that I made, and it's very expansive to say the least. So, if you want to pause the video here, by all means, you can, and just take a look. All right, moving on. Okay, so now that we're wrapped up with Chris, let's move on to Joe. Thankfully, Jill's series of events are not nearly as complicated, and I believe that this is because she is meant to be the game's easy mode, so her path is far less complex and far more linear. Jill actually has the option to make a decision early on that could affect a bit of her gameplay. If she attempts to leave, Wesker will tell Jill that she needs to investigate further.
Investigate if you hear any gunfire.
If Jill attempts to leave again, Barry will mention that it's not like her.
Lost courage already? It's not like you.
When Barry tells Jill to look for other clues, Jill has two options here. She can encounter the first zombie herself, which allows her to examine Kenneth's body for 2 handgun magazines, or she could try to leave, which will activate a cutscene where the zombie walks through the door and tries to attack Jill.
Who is it?
Hey, you! Stop! Run, Jill! He's insane! What the hell?
Let's report this to Wesker.
This latter option will actually make it to where Kenneth will not have any legs, so he won't have the 2 handgun mags on his body, so I guess the zombie just ate the handgun magazines? There was also a rumor for the longest time that taking this coward's way out actually makes it easier to dispose of zombies, but I would like to test that out with an SRT tool that will allow me to see the enemy HP and damage values, etc. That way, we can actually see if that's true or not. But moving forward, Jill has to look around for clues and to report to Barry about Wesker's disappearance. After this cutscene, this is where your choices really start to matter, because depending on your actions, it will determine where and when Jill will run into Barry again. Jill does not need to obtain the sword key, and in fact, it's not even present in her campaign. However, it is possible for her to grab the armor key first before exploring most of the mansion, or even the shield key for that matter. Meeting up with Barry in a specific part of the mansion actually determines a key event later in the game, which would trigger whether or not Barry will help Jill during the Plan 42 fight if he decides to not make V-Jolt. So, before diving into that, let's determine where Jill can meet Barry throughout the mansion. Barry can appear in one of 4 locations, and the way you can meet him is determined by if you decide to explore the western part of the mansion first and set a door on the opposite side. You can't even go as far as playing the piano and obtaining the shield key, but going into the dining room again and then exiting is all you need to do to trigger the next series of events. If you head upstairs to the terrace where Forrest is found after doing this, Jill will run into Barry, and you will automatically create a bazooka or a grenade launcher if you want to call it that, because that's the actual translation, but bazooka is just more fun to say.
Jill! Don't scare me.
That's what I was going to say. Aren't you supposed to be going over the first floor, Barry?
Yeah, you're right. But just take a look at this. It's Forrest. Oh my God.
It's awful.
I'm going to find out what caused Forrest's death. It looks like he was killed by a crow or something. Can you look around the first floor, Jill?
Okay.
Hey, Jill. This must have been Forrest's. You don't have a weapon. Take this with you. can't believe.
Interacting with Barry here will lock you out of Jill's sandwich cutscene, so Jill will need to obtain the broken shotgun if she wants the shotgun for herself. Following this path and heading to the second floor to the room where the fish tank can be found later on, Jill will encounter Barry, and he will show you her document written by Martin Crackhorn with the first page missing. It's interesting to point out that Chris can actually discover this document with the first page intact, and it actually contains very incriminating evidence about Wesker being directly involved, hence why the page is missing. We can assume Barry was here to get rid of this evidence himself.
Is that you, Jill?
What's going on? How come you look so scared?
Look at this. What do you think of it?
I've been thinking something is wrong with this house.
Right.
Hey, what is this? There's a page missing.
Yeah, I thought about that too. Perhaps that was the most important part.
Also, this pathway will lock Jill out of the ability to beat Barry in the main hall, where he can give Jill some free acid rounds. Proceeding through the game as normal and heading to Richard, Jill can do the serum run. Choosing to get the serum and heading back to Richard will grant Jill the radio, and if she gets poisoned by Jan following this event, Jill will pass out and she will be rescued, presumably by Barry, but I will say that I always questioned if this was Wesker, since it's hard to tell considering they both wear black pants.
Am I poisoned? Give me the serum.
If you don't save Richard in time, then getting poisoned means Jill will need to obtain a serum by herself without any help from Barry, and Jill will not obtain the radio. This means no secret radio call cutscene for Jill in the courtyard. Heading to the dorms, Jill can use the radio herself in the same manner as Chris, assuming she has it.
This is Brad. Stars Alpha Team. Please respond. What the hell? Is nobody out there?
Brad, this is Jill.
This is Brad. Stars Alpha Team. Bravo Team. It doesn't matter. Anybody, answer me. This is
Brad? Brad!
And reach an unlocked door with the dorm key on your possession will trigger an event where Jill can hear people talking behind the door. Entering the room immediately following the conversation, Jill will meet Barry again, and he will get very emotional.
Hi, Jill.
Hi, Barry. I heard someone talking.
So you heard it too. I think I'm getting old. It seems that talking to myself is becoming a habit.
Talking to yourself? Barry, something must have happened to you. Am I wrong? You sound strange.
Well, it seems I made you worry, but don't. Maybe I have been a nervous wreck since all of these strange things started happening. Well, I think I'll go out and get some fresh air for a change. I told you, don't worry. I'll just go and get some fresh air and be eaten by a monster.
This cutscene also means that Barry will not help Jill during a Plant 42 fight, regardless of making V-Jolt or not. If you do decide to enter a different room after hearing this conversation and then come back, Barry will not be in this room and he will help you during a Plant 42 fight, but only if you don't use V-Jolt on Plant 42.
What the hell is this? Barry! Jill!
You saved me!
Yeah,
That was close. Thanks, Barry.
don't mention it. What a monster. I can't believe... What the hell is this place anyway? Okay. I'm gonna stay in the soldiers' area and take a look around. Though I'm sure there are still things in that other mansion as well. Anyway, let's start searching separately.
Okay.
Making and using V-Jolt will prevent Barry from helping you out at all, and I will use this moment to say that, as Jill, making V-Jolt is a complete waste of time. Plant 42 goes down quickly with the bazooka explosive rounds anyway, regardless if you make this or not. Regardless of the choice that happens here, Jill will still meet up with Barry after the second encounter with Yawn, and this is where things get really interesting because the game gives you an opportunity to obtain the bad ending or the Chris and Jill good ending right now.
Jill, have you found anything interesting?
Yes, but I can't see very well.
How about going down to check by yourself? I have a rope here.
Oh, do you? Well, then I'll try to go down using the rope.
Wait.
Hey, what's going on?
Now I've done it. Sorry, Jill. Wait. I'll go and get another rope.
Barry? Barry?
If you decide not to wait for Barry when he goes to get another rope, Barry will die no matter what at the end of the game while in the lab after fighting the tyrant in the lab and before escaping. You can still save Chris if you have all 3 MO discs with Jill, and yes, they do appear in the same 3 locations that they do in Chris's campaign. Oddly, to save Chris here will actually give you the Chris and Jill good ending, and you will not encounter the tyrant at the helipad. If you decide to wait for Barry, he comes back with another rope, gives Jill the password for the locked door in the mansion on the 2nd floor, and you'll be able to encounter Barry yet again in the underground area, where the game gives you the second opportunity to get the bad ending or the Chris and Jill ending. Barry will ask Jill if they want to go together. If you say no to accompanying Barry, and then say no a second time, Barry will run away. If you proceed forward, Jill will hear a gunshot.
Barry?
Deciding to run away after hearing the gunshot will seal Barry's fate, and he will die here in the underground, succumbing to the wounds from the hunters. This locks Jill out of the best ending, and now her only options are to obtain the Chris and Jill ending or her bad ending yet again. Saying no to Barry for the first option and then saying yes to him for the second option when he asks if you want to wait right here will also cause Barry to die yet again. but this time later in the lab. If you decide to save Chris while choosing the options for Barry to die in the lab, there will be a slightly different cutscene where Chris can be present during Barry's final words. And this cutscene is always possible as long as Barry dies in a lab and if you opt to save Chris.
Jill!
Hi, Jill. It's you.
Barry?
I'm really embarrassed to see you now. Just leave me. Go quickly.
It's over, Barry. Wesker's dead.
Is that so? Jill, will you do me a favor? This is my last wish. Please give this photo to my family. Will you?
Sure.
Forgive me, Jill.
My God!
Let's get going, Chris. We can't stop.
Saying no to Barry twice in the underground and then hearing a gunshot, if you decide to head through the door that Barry entered, and only the door that Barry entered, Barry will survive. Together you can encounter Enrico, and then Barry is safe for the rest of the game, meaning that you can get the best ending assuming that you save Chris. Or you can opt to ignore Chris and get the Jill and Barry ending. Saving Barry will always result in the final boss fight, the tyrant at the helipad and the mansion blowing up. Keep in mind that Barry can still die if you decide to enter a different door other than the one that he entered in the underground after hearing the gunshot. So it's important that you do this correctly or you will not get the ending that you desire. Choosing to go with Barry and letting him lead could also garner the exact same results, as Barry will always press forward. Now, if you decide to say yes both times to Barry and you didn't want to lead the way, he will be safe for the rest of the game and you can obtain either the best ending or ignore Chris and get the Jill and Barry ending. Also, Barry will be present during the Enrico cutscene where he is shot by a mysterious stranger yet again. If Barry is not with you at this point in the game, Barry won't be in the cutscene with Enrico, and that's it. So let's recap using a flowchart that I made for Joe. As you can see, looking at the flowchart, it is far more linear than Chris's multiple crazy branches. And I can zoom in and show you from top to bottom exactly what to look at. And I'm going to use this moment to just keep it here. And I'm going to scroll down, let you pause the video, and just let you look at it for yourself. Hopefully that gave you enough time. And that's it. Those are all the possible cutscenes and scenarios that can take place in the original Resident Evil. Making this video surprisingly took a lot of time and effort, so I hope that it was well worth the watch. As well as satiating any and all curiosity revolving around the game and its alternative routes, cutscenes, etc, etc. Resident Evil 1 will be 30 years old in the year 2026, and so it's honestly incredible to me how a game this old had so many options and was as non-linear as it was. It truly emphasized a sense of freedom and choice that I feel majority of games lack today. Even the remake is extremely linear in its storytelling compared to the original Resident Evil, and the same goes for the remakes of RE2 and RE3. If this video is to your liking, please feel free to like and comment down below. I love discussing Resident Evil as a franchise, and I always try to respond to everyone that I can. I do also stream on Twitch, and I plan on multi-streaming even here on YouTube going into the new year, so feel free to subscribe if you want to hop on board and help support the cause. I plan on dropping more Resident Evil content, as well as other stuff that is more catered to my own personal interest. I greatly appreciate any and all views since I am a college student and a family man, and the revenue I gain here on YouTube and on Twitch will all support me directly so that I can pay for school and make ends meet. Thank you all for your time, and I hope you all enjoy. So be good to yourselves and have a very safe and happy New Year's. Peace.
Select your hero.